I might have f***ed my headlight. So the factory headlights on this Skyline are starting to look a little bit outdated, and we have some lighting issues as well. So in this video, I'm going to show you how I went from this to this. To start off with, I ordered a set of clear lenses from 2UP. The advantage of these is that they're a smooth finish, unlike the ripple in the stock glass. The downside is plastics do fade and they yellow as they age, so they will need some cleanup from time to time, but they do modernize the look a little bit. The headlights will need to be removed to do this job, and while I've got the stuff out, I want to put in some riv nuts for this bracket as it currently has just 2 bolts that become a little bit annoying to play with. I drilled out the hole and applied some paint with a Q-tip just so it doesn't rust, and an insert will make my life a little bit easier in the future. So this right hand headlight is the one that's in the worst condition, so I'm going to start with this one so that if it all goes wrong, at least I didn't destroy a good headlight. Because we can't make this one any worse, right? To separate their lenses, we need to pop off the plastic clips and remove all our bulbs and wiring before heating it up. You need to heat up the housing to soften the adhesive that holds the lens on, but make sure you pay attention to the instructions you're reading if they say Celsius or Fahrenheit. And yep, we f***ed this light. The whole procedure of trying to un-f*** this light will be at the end of the video. So we're back to square one and I've taken my left headlight out. I went through the same steps again, except this time using a heat gun so I can watch and feel how everything is going. And honestly, I just do this. It took less than 5 minutes to separate the 2 pieces. Once they were separated, I kept using the heat gun around the house to try and clean out as much of the old adhesive from the channel of the light to make way for the fresh stuff when we go to reassemble. The next thing to improve the look is to get rid of this chrome trim. A couple of screws undone, popping out the Parker lens, and rubbed with some sandpaper and some cleaner, I can hit this with some plastic primer, then finishing off with some gloss black. After it's had the day to dry out, I can start to put it back together, trying not to put fingerprints on a glossy black surface. Although the glue that I am using is technically the correct stuff, it wasn't in the best applicator. I'd suggest investing in one of these, which I did for the second light. It made life way easier. Once the channel was filled, the lens can go back on, making sure the lip of the lens sits flush with the top of the channel. Don't be an idiot and push it in like I did, it will ruin your headlight alignment like I found out later on. Once that glue is dried, another bee can go around on the edge of it just to make sure that it's all properly sealed and no moisture can go in. Now to fix up our actual lighting issues. The stock bulbs in a Skyline are a H3C. These particular bulbs I have are rubbish, although it's probably not a general H3C issue, just these ones. The issue, however, with H3C bulbs is they're getting hard to find and expensive to buy, unlike a H3 bulb. These share the same mounting face, with the only difference being a H3 is grounded or it's negative through the headlight rather than via the connector to the bulb. The high beams run a H3 and you can see the tab for negative connecting here. I found some scrap wire and some various terminals that found the screw that I'll be mounting to. I've got both fork and ring terminals, but preferring to run the ring as there's less chance of it getting pulled out. A little bend on the end of it makes fitment much easier and holds the screw nicely when installing it so you don't lose it into the housing. Here's how the standard factory bulb would connect, and with some spade connectors on our positive and negatives we can still use the factory plug. At some point I might put in a proper plug, but for now this seems to hold okay. I can then now do the same to my repaired headlight. Do a quick little bench test and make sure everything works and install it all back on the car. The glue job is a little bit messy, but thankfully it's not seen once it's installed back on the car, and you can probably see the wonkiness of that housing now. This is why you should definitely pay attention to when you're gluing your lens on. Outside of the skewness, I think these look way better and they now complement the smoked look of the indicators. I now also have some decent lighting that is easier and cheaper to replace. Now, to get to this headlight. I definitely didn't pay attention to which side of the world the instructions were from, and they definitely were put in way too hot. Here's my realization in real time of the events. That stinks. We have ruined the tray. That's fine. And And my gloves. Ooh. Okay. So. I might have f***ed my headlight. This has not gone at all to plan. That is the bottom. That is the bottom of the headlight. Because a single second-hand headlight is going to cost me $500, I said no. Let's try fix this instead. So all this excessive thin stuff needs to come off so I have a better base to work with. And a quick check to see the alignment of the housing said that I needed to do some remodeling there as well. Because the glass lens doesn't lose its shape, I needed to clean all the old glue off and the lens channels to give me a clean guide to follow. I didn't get to record much of this because I needed to empty my memory cards, but after about 15 minutes we had something that was pretty spot on to the original shape. For the front at least. So I don't have a proper plastic welder. I also don't really know anything about plastic welding, but please do this in a well ventilated area and maybe a mask if you've got one. I just have an old soldering gun that sometimes gets hot and then a fan to just move the fumes. I've made this little cardboard template that sits right flush against the adjuster, and that gives me sort of the angle and then where that stud needs to be. So I know I'm never going to get this here sorted, but it's more of to try and get the stud a similar distance away from this corner. That way we can still sort of mount a headlight, and then once it's sort of on there and glued or stuck, then we can sort of reheat and bend it and manipulate it if we need to, but it's more of just getting it stuck and close enough to this look. Once all the mounts are in an acceptable position, we've done our full circle and can reassemble the light. The use of the glue gun makes this so much easier and it can all go back onto the car. Don't be dumb, use a heat gun.